My career started out as a dream. When I was a child, I can remember sitting on the floor of my grandmother's house, flipping through the pages of National Geographic magazine. And one day, I came across this story. It's about the honey hunters of Nepal. There, spread across 2 pages, are 2 of my greatest phobias: bees and cliffs. I could spend hours thumbing through the pages of the stacks of magazines in my grandmother's house, dreaming of exotic places. And it was way back then, that little girl up there, that thought to herself, wouldn't it be great to make a living traveling the world and taking pictures? So I went to school at the Pacific Northwest College of Art in Portland, Oregon, to earn my bachelor's degree in fine art photography. Part of my undergraduate studies at the time was to do internships with photographers and photo agencies. And so in 1991, I used a college exchange program and moved to New York City for a semester. Back then, New York was a very different place. It was dangerous. There were no cell phones, mostly because they hadn't been invented yet. And I was a broke student. But my goal was to follow my dream of becoming a photojournalist. I had gotten a job at the prestigious Magnum Photo Agency as an intern, and after working there, I had thought to myself that maybe that path wasn't for me. I was working on my thesis project at the time, which was about domestic violence. That's where I found my creative voice. I discovered that using text layered with created imagery, I could create powerful and unambiguous work. And this came from the study of journalism, where I learned that the true power of images lies in their ability to emote. My thesis had started as a straightforward documentary project at a women's shelter. But the imagery that was most compelling, I found, wasn't documentary at all. But they were images like this that combined research materials that I had accumulated at the women's shelter about sexual predators, combined with images that I had constructed. And it was this work that landed me in a gallery before I graduated from college. This is when I learned that there is no roadmap to a DIY career like this. You have to forge ahead, undaunted, and you have to completely believe in yourself. And although I gained some success with the gallery, success did not equate to rent money. So I did what I had always done through college, and I worked at a pizza restaurant. I also got a job at my alma mater taking care of the darkroom, and I substitute taught a little bit when they needed somebody to fill in. And I started to assist photographers, and then I also started to photograph some gardens for a little bit of extra cash on the side. That's 5 jobs. So I juggled those for quite a few years. And eventually, with the encouragement of one of the photographers I had worked for, I started shooting for magazines. My first image was this. It's on the right. This is taken during the Tonya Harding scandal. And in my first magazine published, it was for Newsweek. This is the same scandal that is now a major motion picture. It's a terrible image. I have no idea why they published it other than that it was in focus. But I do remember spending all night developing the film, scanning it, and sending it over the wire at the Associated Press office in Portland. What was interesting to me, though, is that my first major journalism award came from my garden work. It was this picture of a dahlia for Garden Design magazine. Why a flower? I didn't understand this. I thought that journalism was always breaking news or, some sort of newsworthy event. But this award actually catapulted me into professional photography. And it solidified this idea to me that what was central to my work was giving a voice to beauty. Keeping in mind that during the last century, there were few competitions for professional photographers. And this award, it's the highly acclaimed Alfred Eisenstadt Award, was administered by Columbia University's Department of Journalism. And that was funded by a grant through Life magazine. So I will never forget the day I got the letter in the mail inviting me to go to a big party in New York City to celebrate the release of the special issue of Life magazine, where my picture of a flower was published alongside some of the most amazing photojournalism at the time. I thought for sure that this was going to be my ticket, but it wasn't. I still had to keep plugging along. I did land some great jobs. I started shooting for the New York Times, their travel section primarily. This was a story I shot about Georgia O'Keeffe's time in Hana. I shot for this magazine, Endless Vacation, sounds pretty good. I shot for Luxury Spotfinder magazine, which is also sadly now defunct, but was wonderful. And a magazine I'm sure that you spend a lot of time reading, Pro Magazine. This stands for Portable Restroom Operator, some of my finest work. I'll give you a couple seconds to try to find the misspelling on the man's t-shirt. Yeah, that was I can't say it. There are all kinds of jokes about this magazine. Anyway, but it just proves the point that you do kind of have to just keep moving forward. But it wasn't until April 1st of 2004 that I got a call from a woman who identified herself as the photo editor for this magazine. Keep in mind this is April 1st. I thought for sure it was an April Fool's joke. But it wasn't. They were serious. They were looking for someone to shoot a feature story about Canada. Canada is a fairly large country. But they had to give me a test job first. So they sent me to Seattle, and I shot this picture of the Panama Hotel. It was a one-day shoot. They loved what I did, and off I was to Canada. I shot this story, Canada coast to coast. I started on the west coast, just off the coast of British Columbia on a small island called Cortes Island, and I hopped all the way across Canada to my last location, which was at the Bay of Fundy in Nova Scotia. And if you're OCD like me, you will see that these pictures should be switched because the lighthouse should be on the east coast and the girls on Cortes Island should be on the west coast, but that's a whole other story. But all of my dreams had come true. At that time, I thought for sure that I was doing what I wanted to do, and it's true, I continue to do it now. I was shooting travel journalism. It was the best of all worlds. I didn't even know that travel journalism was a career when I was studying it in college. This career, though, is not for the meek. It is a do-it-yourself career like none other. Each job is exactly that. Can you imagine every time you got up and went to work, you had to reapply for your job? Can you imagine what that's like? You have to work and work and work and just keep going and keep moving forward, email, phone call, send out promo cards. There's no stability, and you're only as good as your last job. It is an absolutely terrifying way to live. The currency you do earn, however, is that of amazing experience, because the assignments that I do get are often very enticing. For instance, this one was one of my first completely picture-driven stories. Now, what that means is that I didn't have copy to follow. There wasn't going to be a lot of text. It was all just photographs. That's just a dreamy job. And this was again, for National Geographic Traveler, called Unique Hotels of the Caribbean. This picture that you're looking at now is of a resort on the island of St. Lucia called Jade Mountain, where each room has its own infinity pool. And if you need to travel by your own private helicopter, they can accommodate you with a helipad on the roof. Another island I visited was St. Bart's, and another luxury property called the Hotel Eden Rock. And I was at breakfast, and this woman found out what I did for a living. She became jealous. She picked up her bagel, and she threw it at me. And I ducked, and it went hurling out to sea, which was great because I didn't have to worry about a mess. But we ended up chatting, and she became my friend, and she ended up being in this picture, which was really nice. This is the view from the bathroom, so just imagine what the rest of the property is like. Another dreamy assignment I got was this one, Sydney a la carte. The missive I got from my editor was to photograph anything that had to do with Sydney and anything that had to do with food, two of my favorite things. Last year was astonishing. In 2017, I became officially bipolar. I went to the South Pole and photographed penguins, and I went to the North Pole and photographed polar bears. I went to the Sea of Cortez and sailed around there for a while and hiked on the islands there that are mostly designated UNESCO World Heritage Sites because of their high rate of plant endemism. I flew to Dublin and had a proper pint of Guinness and got on a ship and explored the coasts of England and Wales. One of the largest jobs I did last year was covering the city of Vancouver, BC, and another one was shooting a photo library for a hotel in Boston. And I think to top it all off last year, I had what I would consider the apex moment of my fine art career. I was invited to show at the Venice Biennale. So photography has become my portal to the world. But it is important to remember that I didn't arrive here by myself. I have always been supported by an army of others. Support from my family, my friends, all the people who believed in me. I stand on the shoulders of the women who came before me and allowed me to now stand here before you. And let's not forget the people who've agreed to let me photograph them, like the bagel-throwing lady. I'm astonished and grateful for every single person who has helped me turn an image into something worthy of a double-page spread. Human interest, pictures of people, are central to most great stories. Because this is such a glamorous profession, about once a week I receive an email from someone who has quit their perfectly good job, maybe a CEO at an ad agency, for example, in order to pursue their dream of becoming a travel photographer. And would I mind telling them how to do it? Because now they are independently wealthy, they'll work for cheap, and they know a thing or two about how to make a great photo. I love their confidence. So I always go and check out their website, and I am often not surprised when I find that it's filled with really beautiful pictures. Vast, empty landscapes, snow-capped mountains, pictures that prove that they definitely know how to travel. However, what is constantly lacking in these portfolios is the key to any good story: human interest. Just think about National Geographic's most famous cover. You know the one by Steve McCurry, the Afghan girl. She has the red headscarf, beautiful skin, and these absolutely piercing eyes. If you open up any magazine or you look online in a story about a place, and you count the number of pictures in which there's a human element versus the empty landscapes, and I can almost guarantee that unless the story demands an empty landscape, you will have a human element in the photo. As photographers, it is the people that agree to help us by either facilitating our work or agreeing to be in the photograph, to which we owe a tremendous debt of gratitude. It is critical that you engage with the people involved in the place where you photograph. And I have a few examples. On the island of Oahu, I needed to take a picture of the classic image. You've seen it. It's been an iconic image of Oahu since the 40s. It's the picture of an outrigger with Diamond Head in the background. But the only way to photograph it is from the water. So I hired this guy, Jean-Paul. He agreed to do this for me. Imagine this. He takes me out into what I call Waikiki traffic. And he paddles me so that I can get into the proper position to get this shot. Everyone in the canoe knew what I was doing. We all worked together. I was tasked with photographing an elephant rescue center in Thailand. And at the end of the shoot, my mahout insisted that I get a kiss from one of the animals. It was, see how my skin is so nice on this side? Just kidding. In Barbados, I had to photograph a story about a surf school. I asked permission to all the students. I said, I'm going to be here taking these pictures. Do you mind? They said, no, go ahead. And eventually, people kind of forget you're there. And they had forgotten I was there. And I saw this picture come across the screen, and they had actually already left for their lesson. So I waited for them to come out of the water. And the guy in the middle of the picture, I knew he had made that shot what it was. This ended up going on to win a few awards. So I pulled him aside and I said, hey, you have this picture, do you mind? And can I get your contact information? He said he loved it, he wanted to show it with his family, and we connected. And it turns out he's an attorney in Washington, D.C. Can you imagine if I hadn't gotten permission? Big problem. So these are just a few examples of how the kindness and generosity of others has made my life and my work remarkable. And although I may feel that I deserve recognition for all of my hard work and that I did this all by myself, none of this would be possible without this army of others. Without the support, the generosity and kindness from our fellow humans, without our global community, we can accomplish nothing. Thank you.